My 8-year-old daughter just destroyed 6 years of careful deception with 7 words at Sunday dinner. Mummy's not really allergic. She just hates your food. The fork slipped from my mother-in-law's hand. It hit her plate with a sharp clink that seemed to echo through the suddenly silent dining room. Diane's face went white, then red, then back to white again. Around the table, my husband Marcus froze mid-chew. His sister Rachel's mouth fell open. Even his dad Gerald stopped cutting his meat. Emma beamed at everyone, completely oblivious to the bomb she'd just dropped. She told Daddy it tastes like... Emma, that's enough. My voice came out strangled. But the damage was done. Diane was staring at me with this look, not anger yet, just shock and hurt so raw it made my stomach twist. 6 years. 6 years of Sunday dinners where I'd smile apologetically and eat the plain salad I'd brought for my digestive issues. 6 years of Diane carefully checking ingredients and asking if the lettuce was organic enough for my sensitive system. I should explain how we got here. When Marcus first brought me home to meet his parents, I was 23 and trying desperately to make a good impression. Diane had spent all day preparing what she proudly announced was her famous pot roast. I took one bite and understood immediately why Marcus always suggested we eat out. The meat was simultaneously dry and greasy. The vegetables had been boiled into grey mush. Everything tasted vaguely of dish soap and burned sugar, a combination I didn't know was possible. But Diane was watching me with such hopeful expectation, her whole face lit up with pride. It's wonderful, I'd lied. I choked down 4 more bites before claiming I was full. That should have been the end of it. But then we got engaged, and suddenly Sunday dinners at Diane's became a weekly tradition. Every week, a new culinary disaster. Chicken so overcooked it turned to powder in your mouth. Pasta that somehow managed to be both crunchy and slimy. A casserole that Marcus later told me had made him violently ill for 2 days, though he'd never admitted it to his mother. The thing is, Diane isn't just proud of her cooking. It's her whole identity. She'd been a stay-at-home mum, and cooking was how she showed love. She'd enter her dishes in church potlucks and community contests, never winning but always convinced next time would be different. Marcus and Rachel had been raised on her cooking and had developed iron stomachs and 0 taste buds as a result. Gerald had learned decades ago to just smile and nod. After 3 months of weekly torture, I was getting desperate. I'd started eating before we arrived. I'd claim upset stomachs, but Diane would look so disappointed, and Marcus would get this pleading look in his eyes because he knew how much it meant to his mother. Then came the incident with the seafood bake. I still don't know what Diane did to those scallops, but 30 minutes after dinner, I was in their bathroom, genuinely sick. When I emerged, pale and shaking, Diane was waiting outside the door, looking mortified. "I'm so sorry," she kept saying. "You must be allergic to something I used." Marcus, bless him, jumped on it immediately. "You know, Mum, Sarah has mentioned having some digestive issues. Maybe we should figure out what triggered this." It snowballed from there. The next week, I brought my own food and claimed my doctor had me on an elimination diet. Diane was so apologetic, so concerned. She started buying organic ingredients, convinced chemicals were the problem. She'd ask detailed questions about my symptoms. And I'd elaborate, invented sensitivities to certain seasonings, mysterious reactions to specific cooking methods. Marcus knew the truth. I'd confessed one night after a particularly brutal meatloaf surprise that had actually made me gag. He'd laughed until he cried. "I should have warned you," he'd said. "Mum can't cook, never could, but it means everything to her." So what do? Eat before I come. Eat after I leave. Develop a tolerance. He'd grinned. "But your allergy thing is genius. Run with it." We'd agreed to never tell. It was victimless, we'd reasoned. Diane didn't feel rejected. I didn't have to eat food that made me genuinely ill. Everyone was happy. Emma had been born a year into our marriage. As she got older, she started asking questions. Why did Mummy bring her own food to Grandma's? Why couldn't she eat Grandma's cookies? At first, the simple, "Mummy's tummy doesn't agree with certain foods," worked fine. But last week, Emma had overheard me on the phone with my sister. "No, we're not coming to your place for Sunday dinner," I'd said. "We have to go to Diane's. Yes, the cooking is still terrible. I've been faking this allergy for 6 years now. At this point, I'm in too deep to stop." I hadn't realized Emma was in the hallway, hadn't realized she'd heard every word, hadn't realized she'd been processing this information all week, waiting for the perfect moment to share her discovery. And now here we were. Diane stood up slowly. The colour had come back to her face, but her eyes were wet. 6 years, she whispered. 6 years of gluten-free bread, special organic produce. I asked the butcher about hormone-free meat. I called you before every dinner to make sure the ingredients were safe. Diane, Was it funny? Her voice cracked. Did you laugh about it? Poor Diane, so stupid she doesn't know her own daughter-in-law is lying to her face every single week. It wasn't like that, Marcus said, standing up. Mum, you knew, Rachel's voice was sharp. She turned to her brother. You knew she was lying to Mom? Rachel, calm down. Don't tell me to calm down. Do you know how much time Mum spent worrying? She called me in tears once because she thought she'd accidentally poisoned Sarah with the wrong kind of oil. Gerald hadn't said anything yet. He was just looking at me with this expression of profound disappointment that somehow felt worse than Diane's tears or Rachel's anger. Emma's smile had finally faded. She looked confused now, her eyes darting between the adults. Did I say something wrong? No, sweetheart. I tried to keep my voice steady. Why don't you go play in the living room? I want to stay. Now, Emma. She left, dragging her feet, and the moment she was gone, Diane spoke again. I need to know, was it all a lie, every Sunday for 6 years? I could have doubled down, could have claimed Emma misunderstood, that I'd been joking with my sister, that of course the allergy was real. For about 3 seconds, I actually considered it, but looking at Diane's face, at the genuine hurt there, I couldn't do it. Yes, I said quietly. It was a lie. Rachel made a disgusted sound. Marcus reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I'm sorry, I continued. I should have been honest from the beginning. But that first dinner, you were so proud, and I didn't want to hurt your feelings. And then it just kept going. And the longer it went on, the harder it was to tell the truth. So my cooking is that bad? Diane's voice was small. Bad enough to lie about for 6 years? This was the moment where I could soften it, claim it was just a matter of different tastes, that some people's digestive systems are more sensitive. But I was so tired of lying. Yes, I said, I'm sorry, Diane, but yes. The pot roast that first night was nearly inedible. Most of the Sunday dinners since then have been the same. I tried to get through them, I really did, but after the seafood incident, I was genuinely sick. And when you assumed it was an allergy, it seemed like a solution that would let me stop eating food that made me ill without having to tell you the truth about your cooking. The silence that followed was deafening. Diane sat back down heavily. She was crying now, quietly, tears just streaming down her face. Gerald put a hand on her shoulder and she shook it off. Get out, she said. Mum, Marcus started. Not you. Her. I want her out of my house. That's not fair. Fair? Diane's head snapped up. She's been lying to me for 6 years, Marcus, making a fool of me, laughing about my cooking behind my back. I never laughed, I said. I never. But you thought it was funny enough to tell your sister, funny enough to make a joke out of it. Diane's voice was getting louder. Do you know what I did after that seafood dinner? I threw out every recipe I had with shellfish. I researched food sensitivities for hours. I bought a completely new set of pans because I read that residue could cause reactions. I did all of that because I thought I'd hurt you, and the whole time you were just… What? Too prissy to eat my food. It's not about being prissy. Your food is genuinely… Stop. Gerald's voice cut through the room. He'd been quiet this whole time, but now he was looking at me with something close to anger. I think you've said enough. Maybe you should go. Marcus stood up. If Sarah goes, I go. Fine, Rachel snapped. Take your lying wife and get out, both of you. We left. What else could we do? I grabbed Emma from the living room, ignoring her questions about why Grandma was crying. Marcus didn't say a word during the drive home. His jaw was clenched, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. It wasn't until we got Emma to bed that he finally spoke. You couldn't have just kept lying? I stared at him. Are you serious? She directly asked you. You could have denied it, claimed Emma misunderstood. She's been living a lie for 6 years because of me, Marcus. Because of us. She deserved the truth. She deserved to keep her dignity. He ran his hands through his hair. Now she's humiliated. She'll never cook again. Do you understand what that means to her? Maybe she shouldn't cook if she's that bad at it." The words hung in the air between us. Marcus looked at me like I'd slapped him. "That's my mother you're talking about." "I know, and I'm sorry I hurt her. But I'm not going to apologize for telling the truth once I'd been caught. This whole thing, it's been wrong from the start. I should have been honest that first night. So this is my fault. I'm the one who suggested keeping up the allergy story. I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm saying we both made a mistake and now we have to deal with the consequences." He didn't have an answer for that. The next 3 days were hell. Diane wouldn't answer my calls. Rachel sent a series of increasingly nasty text messages about what a manipulative person I was. Gerald called once to say that Diane was devastated and needed space. Marcus tried to play mediator, but he was caught in the middle. His family was furious with both of us. Me for lying, him for covering for me. The fact that he'd known the whole time seemed to make it worse in their eyes. On Wednesday, my sister called. "So Emma spilled the beans?" Claire didn't sound sympathetic. "I told you this would blow up eventually. You could try being supportive." "I am being supportive. I'm supporting you finally telling the truth. What do you want me to say? That you were right to lie for 6 years? It wasn't—" I stopped. "Okay, yes, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. But I don't know how to fix it." "Can you fix it? I mean, really, Sarah. You told the woman her cooking is inedible. She asked. She asked if you'd been lying about the allergy. You could have stopped there. You didn't have to detail exactly how disgusting you find her food." I thought about that. About Diane's face when I'd said nearly inedible. About the way her tears had started falling harder when I'd mentioned the seafood incident. I was trying to be honest. There's honest, and then there's cruel. You might want to figure out the difference. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the dinner in my head, thinking about what I could have said differently. Claire was right. I could have stopped at admitting the allergy was fake. I could have claimed it was about my own issues, not Diane's cooking specifically, but would that have been any better? Another layer of lies. On Thursday afternoon, Diane finally called me. "I want to talk," she said. Her voice was hoarse, like she'd been crying. "Can you come over tomorrow? Just you, not Marcus." I arrived at 2 p.m., my stomach in knots. Diane answered the door looking exhausted. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and she'd aged about 5 years in the past week. We sat in her living room in silence for a long moment. "I talked to Gerald," she finally said, "and Rachel, and Marcus. I've been thinking about what you said about the lying." "Diane, I'm so—" She held up a hand. "Let me finish. I've been thinking about why you lied, and I realised something. You're not the first person who's had trouble with my cooking." I didn't know what to say to that. "Gerald stopped eating my dinners about 15 years ago," she continued quietly. "He claims he has to work late most nights, but I know he eats before he comes home. Rachel started doing the same thing after she moved out. She always has an excuse. Ate at work, trying a new diet, already grabbed something. And Marcus has been eating around my dinners his entire adult life, hasn't he?" The honesty in her voice broke something in me. "Yes," I whispered. "I'm not stupid, Sarah. I've known for years that something was off. People would take one bite and suddenly be full. They'd rave about how good it was, but never finish their plates. But no one ever said anything directly, so I could pretend I didn't notice." She looked at me then. Really looked at me. "You're the first person who told me the truth, and I hated you for it. You had every right to hate me. I lied to you for 6 years. You lied because I created an environment where lying was easier than being honest, because I made my cooking so central to my identity that no one could tell me the truth without destroying me." She laughed, but it was bitter. "And the really stupid thing? I don't even enjoy cooking. I never have." I blinked. "What?" "I learned to cook because that's what wives and mothers did. It was the 1980s. Gerald worked, I stayed home, and I cooked. I was never good at it, but it became this thing I had to be good at because what else did I have?" Her voice cracked. "My whole identity became Diane who cooks for her family. And somewhere along the way I stopped being able to hear that I was terrible at it. We sat in silence for a moment. I went through my recipe box yesterday, Diane said. Really looked at the recipes. Half of them don't make sense. Cooking times are wrong. Ingredient ratios are off. I've been following these same wrong recipes for 30 years, and no one told me. We should have told you. Yes, you should have. All of you should have. She met my eyes. But I also should have noticed when my entire family started avoiding my food. I should have asked for honest feedback instead of just fishing for compliments. I should have taken a cooking class or watched a YouTube video or something. It's not too late, I said carefully. You could still learn. Take a class, maybe? Diane was quiet for a long moment. I'm 62 years old, Sarah. The thought of starting over, of admitting I've been doing it wrong all this time. She shook her head. I don't know if I have that in me. Then maybe you don't have to cook, I suggested gently. Maybe you could find something else that brings you joy, something you're actually good at. She smiled just a little. Gerald suggested the same thing. Apparently I've been talking about taking a painting class for about 10 years. So take it. Maybe I will, she paused. But I need something from you first. Anything. I need you to tell me the truth from now on. About everything. No more polite lies to spare my feelings. No more fake allergies or convenient excuses. If I'm going to change, really change, I need people around me who will be honest. I thought about that. About how much easier it had been to lie. About how comfortable we'd all been in our pattern of deception. I can do that, I said, but you have to promise the same thing. If I say something that hurts you, tell me. Don't just let it fester. Deal. We shook on it and something in the room shifted. So, Diane said, a hint of actual humour in her voice. On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad was the pot roast that first night? I hesitated, then remembered my promise. 11. It was an 11. I seriously considered faking food poisoning to get out of finishing it. Diane laughed, really laughed, loud and surprised. Gerald rated it a 12. He said it was the worst thing I'd ever made, which is apparently saying something. We talked for another hour. She told me about the disasters I'd missed, the Thanksgiving turkey that was somehow still frozen in the middle, the birthday cake that collapsed into a puddle, the Italian feast that had given everyone heartburn for 3 days. I told her about the elaborate lies I'd constructed, the careful planning that had gone into avoiding her meals. It should have been painful, but somehow it wasn't. It was freeing. Before I left, Diane hugged me. Thank you, she said, for finally telling me the truth, even if you did it in the worst possible way. I really am sorry about how it came out. Don't be. If Emma hadn't blurted it out, we'd probably still be stuck in the same pattern 10 years from now. Sometimes you need an 8-year-old to blow up your life. The next Sunday, we still went to Diane's for dinner. But instead of Diane's cooking, we ordered pizza. Real, edible pizza from the place down the street. Diane seemed lighter somehow, happier. She spent dinner talking about the painting class she'd signed up for instead of hovering anxiously over our plates. I never realized how stressful Sunday dinners were, she admitted. Always worrying if people liked the food, if I'd cooked enough, if everything was perfect. This is so much better. Gerald looked more relaxed than I'd ever seen him. Rachel was still a bit cool toward me, but she'd texted earlier in the week to apologize for some of the things she'd said. Emma, oblivious to the fact that she'd caused all of this, happily ate her pepperoni pizza and chatted about school. Marcus squeezed my hand under the table. You know, Diane said thoughtfully, I think I owe you an apology too, Sarah. What? No, you don't? I do. I made my cooking this untouchable thing. I never asked for honest feedback. I just assumed everyone loved it and got hurt when they didn't react the way I wanted. That's not fair. That's not being a good host or a good mother-in-law. You're a wonderful mother-in-law, I said, and meant it. I'm a mother-in-law who made you lie for 6 years because I couldn't handle the truth. Let's call it even and start over. We clinked our wine glasses together. It's been 8 months since Emma's dinner table revelation. Diane never cooked another Sunday dinner. She did take that painting class, and it turns out she's actually talented. Her landscapes now hang all over her house, and she's talking about entering a local art show. We still do Sunday dinners, but now we rotate who hosts and we order in more often than not. When someone does cook, Diane is the first to offer genuine, constructive feedback. She's gotten good at the honesty thing. So have I. Last month, she asked me point blank if I liked her new haircut. The old me would have gushed about how wonderful it was. Instead, I told her the truth, that the bangs weren't quite working, but the length was perfect. She went back to the salon the next day and came out looking 10 years younger. "See," she said when she showed me, "that wasn't so hard, was it?" And she was right. The truth isn't always easy, but it's a hell of a lot simpler than maintaining a 6-year lie. Emma still doesn't quite understand what happened that night. She knows she said something that made people upset, but as far as she's concerned, everyone's happy now, and we get pizza at Grandma's instead of that weird food that made Mummy's tummy hurt. Kids have a way of cutting through the nonsense. I've learned a lot from this whole mess. That lies, even kind ones, have a way of growing into something uglier than the truth would have been. That protecting someone's feelings isn't always the kindest choice. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do is be honest, even when it's hard, and that an 8-year-old with no filter can be the catalyst for the change everyone was too scared to make. If you enjoyed this story, hit subscribe and let me know your thoughts in the comments.